Hey, how's everyone doing today? How are y'all?
Good.
Oh, good. Yeah, Maria.
Nice.
We already
So,
have folks joining us.
yeah, I love it. I love when folks just enter the chat, enter the conversation, and be like, "Hey, let's talk some more enterprise security operations." How are you doing today, Marc?
Good. I'm actually enjoying. I've made it into my actual office today for the first time. I think in 2024.
Wait, so what's the room that you've been working out of all this time? Is that
That's
your
my
lab
home
environment?
office.
That's your home.
So
your
my
home
home office. Yeah. So my home office is a converted garage that my wife and I share. And my wife is now 100% full-time remote for her job. She doesn't go into the office anymore.
Love it.
And so we agreed that I now need to go into the office more since we share the office. And unfortunately, the craziness of the first couple of weeks with my kids' schedule and everything else has just been like, nope, not worth going into the office today. But I figured since we're doing the live stream, I wanted to make it in today.
I love it. That's good. This is my home office. I just chill here, but this is also my fortress of solitude in some ways. Whenever I feel like gaming, I'll come here. It's a good setup, but the one thing that I've been really trying to emphasize and focus on is creating a real separation between my lab, my work, and stuff for like playing and having fun. So I've got this room in the basement that is just like has no windows, nothing. And I'm trying to think, like, should it become a meditation room? Should it become a gaming room? I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet, but it's right by where all my networking stuff is. So maybe that's where my lab might go. Yeah. So in any case, I am excited to be here with y'all. I hope Kat joins the conversation. Maybe Akansha, if you want to drop the StreamYard link in some chat to share with her so she can join us. Yeah. But we're going to get into some more EntSecOps today, and we're going to dig into more of that OpenUnison. What we're going to do today is we're going to actually deploy CERT Manager. Now, Marc, why would we use CERT Manager instead of some of the defaults that OpenUnison and Istio offer up?
So certs are painful. I mean, anyone who knows them, anyone who's used them, anyone who's had to interact with them, certs are just really overly painful. There are a lot of little gotchas when it comes to generating a certificate that are very easy to get wrong, that browsers, some browsers are just more finicky about than others. And what I've found over my career is that when deploying OpenUnison in particular, but really any kind of identity product or system, CERT is like the thing that people get caught up on first. So OpenUnison will deploy self-signed certificates for you and keep them up to date. They are not designed to be used in production. They are really meant to be just like last week, we got it up and running. Now what? I will always recommend some kind of external certificate management. So like most of my customers will either offload, hey Kat, will offload their certificate to a load balancer. But even then I say, you know what, roll out CERT Manager, tell it to generate your certs for you, and then just forget about them. Like I know I have a enterprise CA that I use for all my clusters, and I trust that one root CA. And now it doesn't really matter what I deploy. I don't get certificate errors anymore. I don't have to figure out workarounds. So make your life easy. Just deploy CERT Manager, and then we'll make a couple of changes to the values.yaml, and you won't have to worry about it anymore.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I'll also provide some context around certs too, because coming from the Istio and service mesh world, you have all of these services that need an identity document, because we also want to test these workloads too and make sure that they are who they say they are. So in the world of service mesh, one of the ways that we would do this is we would work with CERT Manager to have certs issued directly to sidecars. that live beside a lot of these services inside of pods. These sidecars will learn about these certificates and own them through something called XDS, which is a data plane to allow certs to be passed down to the proxies or these sidecars. Now, what's also interesting is within the service mesh ecosystem itself, there is a mechanism to rotate certificates as well. There's a mechanism to make sure that certificates are valid, because at the same time, we don't want a certificate that's going to be infinitely valid. We want to expire it after a certain time frame. So this pairs nicely with this concept of short-lived tokens when it comes to OpenUnison. So we're going to see some of that magic too. We're also going to dig into Kiali. And for folks that are not familiar with Kiali, it's a visualization tool that helps us understand the flow of our requests. So we might have a requester, might be me, it might be Akansha, could be Marc, could be Kat, and they're making a curl request to a service. Now, when we hit that initial service, there might be a chain of other services behind that. Now, in that chain, we call this a request path. And somewhere along that request path is we're going to get some answers and eventually get our response. But in that request path, between each one of those services, there needs to be a mechanism of trust and identity. And this is where those certificates really come into play, because we just don't want to start pulling information from an untrusted service altogether. Anyways, that's where Kiali is going to help us see some of this stuff, but also we're going to use OpenUnison to authenticate into Kiali. And then finally, the last thing we're going to touch on is some RBAC, role-based access control. Once we've gotten past the authentication phase, we know who you are. What can you do once you're in the system? All right, so I also want to welcome Kat to the conversation. Welcome, Kat. This is, I think, the first time you've been on one of these streams. So welcome. Thank you for coming back.
No, thank you. I'm excited. It's a little early for being on video. I'm not going to lie, but glad to be here.
I feel that pain. Kat, you're based in the West Coast, right?
Yep, closer to Seattle.
Yeah. Got it. All right. So let's go ahead and share my console, my terminal here. And what do we want to first look at, Marc? So let's go take a look and see what our cluster looks like. We have Istio installed. We have OpenUnison ready to go, but we have a base install of OpenUnison. So it's doing some basic authentication for us through a portal that we would hit, and it would auth us into the cluster.
Right. And, the first thing to point out is that we are using the stock certificates that OpenUnison generates for us. Now, we don't ship default certificates. So every certificate that runs is brand new. So there's no defaults, but they are generated for you. And we don't claim to replace CERT Manager. So honestly, the first thing I would do is go ahead and let's roll out CERT Manager, and then we can replace the self-generated certificates that we have running in the Istio system namespace with CERT Manager, certs.
So I'm going to look through your documentation to see if there is a CERT Manager installation. I'm sure it's like a
There isn't a specific CERT Manager. There is a guide on how to use external certificates.
Using external certificates, OpenUnison. Certificate management. How do I change OpenUnison certificates? Actually, I'll share my screen so y'all can see the documentation that I'm looking at. So I believe this is the document you're referring to, right, Marc? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So OpenUnison certificate, go ahead.
Yeah, so the process itself is, pretty straightforward. The key is that first you need to tell OpenUnison, hey, don't generate certs. Don't generate the external certs. There's still some internal certs that we generate for you, unless you tell us not to. Because we manage that for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So like the connection to the TLS connection to the dashboard, we generate a certificate for you. The connection between Istio and OpenUnison is TLS. We generate that for you. That you don't have to worry about. But the connection to the outside world is the one that you want to really make sure that you're letting CERT Manager handle for you. And so the first thing you need to do is generate your CERT Manager CA, which is generating a certificate authority. So you install CERT Manager, which is just some single manifest. Once that's up and running, you create a CA secret, which is just a self-signed key pair. Then you generate a certificate object that actually generates your TLS secret. And then at that point, we can redeploy OpenUnison and say, hey, here's our CA certificate. Here is our, please don't generate new certs. Everything will rerun. The YAML will get regenerated appropriately. And then you can when you log in, you'll now be using your CA signed certificate as opposed to the self-signed certificates that you used for OpenUnison.
All right, fantastic. So I could just take this simple apply command and drop it into my terminal.
Yep.
And CERT Manager is on its way to being installed. You can't see my screen, so what I will do is I will flip and share that.
All right, well, this is in progress. Mark, I got to ask you a question.
Go for it.
In every Kubernetes cluster that I set up, I deploy CERT Manager almost right off the bat. And then I deploy a self-signed certificate chain of trust as my first initial CA in the cluster, so that I can just add self-signed certs to just anything that I want. I know that there's some ways to optimize that so that I'm always using the same root CA if I want to install a CA on my dev machine and just access dev pre-prod sites without all the warnings and stuff like that. Is this a bad practice or?
I don't think so. I wouldn't do that for prod necessarily. I probably would separate it for prod.
Okay.
The tricky thing about certificates is less about the technology of certificates and more about the policies around certificates. So to give you an example, once upon a time before I started Tremolo and I was a software consultant, I had a customer who they were building an app, a health management app. And, I'd been helping them for a while with their web-based infrastructure for identity, but they wanted to build an identity system for their app. And this was before CERT Manager existed. API-based CERT management did not exist. And I ended up building a CERT-based system using OpenSSL.
Yep.
It worked.
Yep. Yeah, my first step into PKI was generating just a really lame bash script for OpenSSL, and I literally titled it Simple CA, not for production, just for development, just to learn the internals of how PKI works, which was incredibly informative, but not something I wanted to do every day. Thank God for CERT Manager.
Yes, absolutely. So the technology is not hard. What makes certificate management really hard and what makes it, especially in enterprises, really difficult is policy. Because in order for that certificate to pass the different regulatory policies that govern those things, there are volumes of controls that have to be in place and design set up that have absolutely nothing to do with the technology and everything to do with, did you check the box? And so if you're building a home lab, because what you described, Kat, is exactly what I do. I have a YAML file that has a CA, an issuer. I deploy it with every single cluster that I deploy because I ain't got time to hit the accept button on, it just makes life so much easier because now I have complete control over my certificates.
Yep.
And no, I don't think that there's any problem with that from a security standpoint. Once you start getting into a compliance world, then, that's not going to fly, unfortunately.
Fair.
But that said, what I do what I will do often, even in compliance environments, what you can often get away with is running an internal CA for internal operations.
That was going to be my next question, because that's how I end up using it frequently. When I was working at Kong, we had more complex deployment options than just the one instance of Kong, but all of them needed to be connected through MTLS, just with east-west traffic, all that traffic
Yep.
that stays in cluster. And that CA, like self-signed CA, was always my go-to for like plugging that gap.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's basically what Istio does, right? I mean, that's what all the service meshes do, is they generate an internal self-signed CA, and they, it all happens behind the scenes. You don't have to think about it. It's like breathing.
Yep.
But that's what they do, and that, there's probably an auditor somewhere that would throw a hissy fit about that. But at the end of the day, that's when that's when you dig in and say, okay, here are all the mitigating circumstances. We control it. Nobody looks at it. Nobody sees it. Doesn't talk to the outside world. Yada yada yada. So,
well, and conversely, if you're like working with an auditor at that point and it's that big of an issue, it might just be more simple to switch to one of the other CERT classes and just let that one fly out the door with
maybe
because you're using automation.
Yeah, I mean, the problem there becomes that if you will generally not get a CA team that owns a certificate manager to issue you an intermediary that will allow you to issue certs, because now you are brought into the chain, which means now you do in fact have to meet all those compliance requirements, and there isn't an automated cert system that exists that matches those cert requirements. It doesn't exist. I mean, maybe like Let's Encrypt, but I imagine once you get under the hood of Let's Encrypt, there's a lot going on there beyond the Acme protocol.
Yeah.
How we doing, Marie?
All right. So we're at the stage where we got to implement a secret for the CA or for cert manager, right? And we have to choose a TLS certain key pair. Doesn't matter what it is. Can it be anything?
Yeah. So you can either generate a self-signed cert however you see fit. If you want to just skip to the end, I've got I've got it copied a million times over here somewhere. Chapter 11.
I was actually looking through your book for it. That's why.
Yeah, I've got like so many. I use this so many times. Cluster.
I was like, which key can I TLS key insert can I use here?
I'm looking for. I've got, of course, the moment that I'm looking for it, I can't seem to find it. It's going to be in. Let's see. Where do I deploy OpenUnison in this stupid book? 11, 12. I think I do it in 10. No. 13. No. It's one chapter. I didn't write that chapter. Did I merge 15 in? I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. Chapter 9. Multi-tenant. Setup. Deploy OpenUnison. Okay, here we go. All right, so let me send this over to you. This command is my go-to command. Let's see if this works. Did that come through, or should I try emailing it to you?
No, it came
Yeah,
through.
it's here.
It doesn't look like the whole thing came through, though.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, it didn't.
All right, so let me just go to email it to you.
Dang it. Why did the EOF work?
There we go. All right, just sent it to you. So that's my kind of go-to, generates the certificate and the cluster issuer.
Did you said you just emailed this to me?
Yeah, to EmpathyOps.
Oh, okay, there we go. Got it. Okay. Oh, wow. That's definitely a bigger command. Okay.
Yeah. And it's not really that big of the command. It's just, you
It's
got
just the
basically foreign coded certain key.
There we go.
All right. So now you got the cluster issuer. Now you need to generate a certificate.
Kubernetes
So
secret. Yeah.
yeah. So the next step in order to do that, do I actually have that? I might, maybe, perhaps.
I was just looking at it. It
Oh,
was
wait,
like
no, because I used the annotation. That's why.
So it's kubectl create secret TLS. Is that the command?
Well, you don't have to create a secret because we already did that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the first, if you look at the command you ran, the first thing you did was create a TLS secret.
Yep, that's right. Right here.
And then the second thing was the cluster issuer. So if you look at, so like if you do a K get cluster issuer -O wide.
Yep,
Yeah, so you can see it's up, it's ready. You can start issuing certificates. So the next way you can generate certificates is one of two ways. If we were using Nginx, we would just add an annotation to the ingress object.
But we're
and
using
then
Istio.
we're using Istio. Does Istio have that cluster? I don't use Istio quite as much. I don't know if that's one that exists out of the box on the virtual gateway object.
Sorry, what do you mean?
So like for Nginx, I add annotation to the ingress object, and that's what actually generates our CERT. Does that exist in Istio for the virtual gateway?
Not for Istio. For Istio, you can specify what the CERT is and terminate TLS right there. Yeah.
Right. So what we would then want to do is generate a certificate object. So I probably have one that we can just mock up here. If I can figure out, I'm going to do SSH.
Yeah, I have the commands to create a secret for the Istio ingress gateway, but
Hold on a second here. Oh, I'm not on my VPN. That's why I can't get there. There we go.
So
All right, let's try this again. All right, kube control, get certificates. Okay. All right, perfect. So kube control, get certificate, OpenUnison. All right. Oh, yeah. All right, so this will work wonderfully. We'll just have to mock this up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and send this back to you once again. Excuse me, via email.
no worries.
Chat's not going to take this, but this will be good to customize. Merino, more YAML. Because if there's anything we love in the Kubernetes world,
It's YAML.
more YAML. So I just sent it to you. I haven't mocked it up at all. Well, probably be good for people to see it getting changed and edited. So the key is that when you generate a certificate object for CERT manager, you got to tell it who's issuing it. Right. In this case, it'll be our enterprise CA. You've got to tell it what host names. I would say just do like a wildcard. Star dot. What was our host name for OpenUnison again?
It was K8s OU. K8s OU
yes.
.apps.
So I would do a wildcard for star.apps and then just run with it instead of doing individual host names.
Okay. 1 second. Cons.
Yeah, so obviously.
So I have to change.
Clean out here.
Yeah. So let me just swap these to my IPs. 1 second.
And then I would just do star.apps instead of the, each individual DNS name. Then I don't remember, did we put dashes in DNS instead of no? Okay, cool.
No.
And just delete the rest of those.
Oh, so
No,
we don't need any of them?
Yeah, you don't need them.
Looks good to you?
That almost go up to the metadata. So you got to clean up the
we're using
metadata.
nip.io. I'm sorry, I totally just like cut in. I was just super happy.
No, I love nip.io. Why bother deploying your own DNS server?
Exactly.
No.
Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know, nip.io is a really, really cool domain resolution service where all you're doing is using an IP address. It can be encoded in the normal octet that you're used to seeing, or you can encode it a few different ways. But basically, you send the request with the subdomain as your IP, and then it'll resolve to the subdomain IP address that you send the query with. So it's basically just for resolving like localhost or similar like locally located addresses on your LAN without having to set up DNS.
Yeah, it's great. We use it pretty much exclusively in the book to make life easier when doing examples. The one gotcha with nip.io, and there are a couple of others, is it's actually a really popular tool used by malware. So
That
a lot of
makes sense.
corporate networks don't allow it.
Yeah, believable. I've actually had to flip settings on my own Vios gateway before for it to allow the nip.io traffic.
Really? I have not seen that one.
Yep.
All right. That looks good, Marino.
All right.
Now go ahead and delete the secret OU TLS certificate in the Istio namespace, because that was the one that OpenUnison generated. We don't want to worry about that one.
Okay. Let me just delete this.
And like going back to what Kat and I were talking about earlier, you can see Istio's got its own CA there because it's issuing certificates for all the workloads. All right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, put
like
quotes around the DNS. Yeah.
Yeah, nip.io and CERT Manager with a self-signed CA, and I'm set for dev environments for life. It's a match made in heaven for sure.
All right, so you can see that it's got one data. So that means that it hasn't actually issued the certificate yet. So now if you check again.
Is it because it's opaque?
No, it should. That means something's not issuing. Because usually with a self-signed CA, it's like lickety-split. Try adding, for DNS names, add an additional DNS name that's apps.yourip.nip.io, but without the star. I know Let's Encrypt gets very unhappy if you don't include both of those.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just
Let's
took a
just that
second
one.
for it to catch up. So now at this point, if you were to try to log into OpenUnison, you would get this. You would when you look at the certificate. I mean, it's still going to complain unless you've downloaded and trusted that cert. But it's going to complain, but it's going to have a different host name or issuer now when you look at it. The next thing we got to tell OpenUnison to do a couple of things at this point. One,
hold on a second.
Oh, yep.
So keep going. Sorry, keep going.
So we want to do two things at this point. One, we want to we had this last time because you were signed in, I think, with your primary user or your enterprise user or admin user. So we want to tell OpenUnison, hey, don't generate certs. But the other thing we want to do is we want to tell OpenUnison that the Unison CA, the cert that's signing all of OpenUnison certs, is the enterprise CA. And the reason for that is that token screen where you downloaded your certificates from or your kube control configuration from, we include your CA certificate there to make sure that you're able to download it. So that way you're not potentially in a position where you have to distribute certificates. So the way that you do that is if you look at your values.yaml, and this is what gets explained in that that bit of documentation we were looking at before.
Okay, let me share my console again.
So if you go ahead and edit this file.
YAML.
Now we got this generated from 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 Helm, right? We reverse engineered this. So look for what the heck is the configuration option? Look for create ingress certificate, camel case. And it's going to be in there. You probably just went by it. Yep.
Right there. Okay.
Yep. So change that to false. So that's how we tell OpenUnison, hey, don't generate the certificate. Now, the next thing we need to do is look for, there's going to be a setting called trusted_certs. It's going to be a top level setting. Yeah, this is all the stuff that you don't really have to worry about. Here we go. All right, so right now it's an empty list. You're going to add a object. If you look at the certificate management screen, it's got the example. It'll be the object's going to have two attributes. One's going to be name, which is going to be unison-ca. That tells OpenUnison, hey, this is the issuer for all of our certificates. And then the next one is going to be PEM_B64. And that's going to be the TLS cert from the secret that you used for the issuer.
I see it. Okay. But that base 64 secret, where do I get that from?
Check your email. It's the email. It's the secret that you generated before you generated the.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, I see it.
So from a CA standpoint, what you're now doing is certificate authorities work by creating a chain of trust by digitally signing, which is basically encrypting now you don't want the whole thing. You just want the value of TLS.CRT. You don't want the actual key in there or the actual secret.
Just, okay, I got it.
Just the value of TLS.CRT. So while Marino's fixing that up, what the way CAs work for anybody who's not had the joy of working with them is you generate a self-signed key. So you've got a public key and a private key. The public key doesn't have any metadata information with it. It's just a giant number. So a certificate stores that giant number plus a bunch of additional data. How long it's good for, who issued it, why it was issued, what it was issued for.
Mm-hmm.
The way certificate authorities work is they create a chain by signing, and signing is just a fancy word for encrypting with the private key, so you can decrypt it with the public key and validate it with the public key. You want the base 64 value of the TLS.CRT key in the secret.
Okay.
So if you look in the secret, TLS.CRT is a base 64 encoded certificate. That's what you want to put in there, is that base 64 encoded certificate.
Where is that hiding? Oh, there, TLS key, right? That's the one?
TLS.CRT.
TLS.CRT. Okay.
You want the certificate, which is the public part.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got it. This one right here.
Perfect. So when you create a certificate authority, what you're doing is you're saying, this is my root of trust. This is my master key. And then when I'm going to create certificates for other sites, workloads, whatever, the person who's generating the certificate says, here is my public key. Please give me a certificate. And so that certificate comes back with a bunch of metadata that says, I sign this. If you decrypt this with my public key, which you have, you can validate that this is valid. And so that's why it's so important to copy certs around and have trust in place and whatnot.
Okay.
So at this point, we can go ahead and redeploy with the OU control command.
Oh,
kubectl OUCTL, right?
No, you deployed this using your Windows box last week.
Yeah, that's why I don't have OUCTL. Yeah. Okay. Let me download.
Yeah,
that.
so you're gonna want to download it.
Yeah.
Now the good news is you don't have to worry about figuring out what the secret is, because OU control is smart enough to say, oh, you've already deployed the secret. I'm not going to bother asking for it again. Yeah, that's my favorite way to do OU control.
Brew. Okay.
Okay, what is the elevator pitch on OpenUnison? I know, like, I probably missed this at the very beginning.
So the elevator pitch on OpenUnison is simplifying and securing your Kubernetes authentication and authorization. So think about having to deploy DEX, KubeOIDC proxy, OAuth 2 proxy for each application, multiple different ways, having to create a centralized kube control configuration file so that you can use OIDC, KubeOIDC plugin. So that's 5 or 6 different components that you need to deploy. OpenUnison does all of that in one command. There's no centralized configuration to generate. It gets generated for you on the fly. We also have a kube control plugin that allows you to log in without having to log into the portal first. It supports multi-cluster. It also supports out of the box both on-prem and managed clusters. So we forked JetStack's KubeOIDC proxy about 2 years ago now.
Oh,
and
really?
have taken over management and have been adding features to it. And so whether you're talking about the kube control Kubernetes dashboard, which we provide secure access to, Kiali, which we might get to today, or other applications, it gives you that kind of one-stop shop for identity inside your cluster.
Mhm.
Well, now I'm going to have to be upset, Mark, because you added a new requirement to my home lab. Apparently, I need some OpenUnison.
Yeah,
Swear I
the
just
the big
installed.
thing. Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
It's in there somewhere. It's not out control. It's OU control. Where's Homebrew installed? There you go. So if you type OU control, it should work.
Yeah, because I could keep typing OUT.
Yeah, I think you keep
Mhm.
deploying running out control.
Okay, OUCTL. It's
I
up
really
and
don't
running.
understand the point of AI if it can't fix my command line typos.
Man, giving AI access to my command line just sounds really risky.
Risky. No, it sounds fun. What are you talking about?
What is
Well,
the worst that could happen, Kat?
What is the worst that
Really?
could happen when you take a declarative system with known outcomes and add a probability drive to it?
Since we didn't deploy on this one before, did you add the Helm charts? Download the Helm repo?
Mhm.
no, I'll probably have to do
Yeah,
that
you're
as
probably
well.
gonna need to do that.
For oh, 1 second. Yeah, I could do
If you
that.
go deploying the authentication portal,
Yeah.
Mhm.
deploy
Yeah,
with
I see it.
OUCTL, it's got the Helm commands in there. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Kubernetes authentication is that, you've got the master config file, right? You've got the root certificate that gives you God mode. Cannot be revoked. You have to redeploy all the keys inside of your certificate, or inside of your cluster, which is scary, to say the least. But even when you're talking about clouds like Amazon or whatnot, the question then becomes, does your cloud team want to be the ones managing who has access to clusters? And what I find is a lot of cloud teams are saying, you know what, no, we don't want that responsibility anymore. Our job's hard enough just managing this infrastructure. I don't want to manage who has access to it. You as the cluster owner should do that. And so that's where really our value proposition comes in. So you've got install auth portal,
With
path to your values.yaml. And then you should be good to go.
So I don't need to pass the path to my secret, right?
Nope. That's what the OU control command does, is it looks to see, oh, do you have that secret? Awesome. We'll just go. Because all OU control is really doing is it's a wrapper around Helm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's just figuring out which Helm commands you need to do certain things. So it's also testing your config to make sure, hey, is this config set up properly? For Istio, we actually generate Istio native objects for you, so you're not trying to figure out, where's my virtual gateway, where's my,
Yeah, like all
me.
these resources are pre-configured for you, and that's like a brilliant thing because you don't want platform teams to have to sit there and decide, like, what do I need within Istio? What do I need to update for the gateway? Do I need to upgrade the connection on the gateway to inject TLS? No, not necessarily. And OpenUnison is taking, or OUCTL is taking care of that for us here, right?
Yeah, exactly. We support out of the box Ingress Nginx, Istio, and Traffic are the three that we support out of the box.
What was that last one?
And Traffic.
Okay.
And if there's one that you want and we don't support, just give us a holler, open up an issue. We'll add it. Last thing I want people to do, because when we first rolled out OpenUnison, we found that probably a third of the problems people were having were certificates. So that's why we added our own built-in certificate generator. Then came Ingress and having Ingress set up because we're a web application. And then finally, load balancers and figuring out how load balancers work. So if you look at our documentation, you'll find that we actually include step-by-step instructions on how to set up with specific load balancers and explain the concept. But the other thing that we explain also is if you don't have an external load balancer, so like you're doing this on a development cluster and you don't have that external load balancer set up, how do you set up a port for 443 and 80 on that single node cluster or whatever?
Could you do port forwarding? Could port forwarding work like the kubectl port forward command?
Maybe, probably not though, because we end up requiring a lot of host names and redirects. It gets really squirrely. And then because of the way OpenID Connect works, it gets really because of all the communication, you need a load balancer in there, at least if you're going to do anything real.
Okay.
So it looks like you're deployed, so you should be able to log in.
All right. So the one thing I had to do was create a incognito window to be able to clear my cache. So let me just find that
Incognito,
window.
an authentication expert's best friend.
Yep. Okay, so there it is, right? If I can just find the actual portal on my side, because I've got like 500 windows open.
Of course.
Okay, so I got to reset my password. Only because I have to, and this is because
nobody peeking.
Ooh, K8s OU.
Let's see.
Interesting.
Here. Oh, you know why? You've got K8s OU, but you don't have the .apps.
Oh, .apps. Gotcha. Okay. K8s OU .apps. 74.220.18.48.nip.io.
K8s OU.apps. So we're getting a 404. Let's take a look at your values.yaml.
Let's option.
All right, we want to look for, just do a search on K8s OU.
1 second. I just want to. Okay. K8s OU. Right there.
Oh, I guess we changed it. So OpenUnison host. Scroll up a little bit. Okay, so we're going to have to fix our certificate.
Okay.
So
because we added apps.
Yeah. So what we'll want to do is edit our certificate object. Marino, how many times have you clicked up instead of just doing them?
We can Control R. I'm just trying to remember what file we edited, and that's the hard part. Like, where did I store that key? Like, I remember storing it somewhere.
Did you store it in your home directory? Is that where you've been working?
Yeah, there it is.
It's
CERT
like
issue.yaml.
CERT issuer, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's change that from apps to just .star.
Same with below.
Yep. Just start with 74. Yep.
And then rerun the
And then-
OECTL thing.
Nope. just do a K apply on CERT Assure.
Sorry, I don't use aliases. I apologize.
No worries. And then what I do just to be sure is delete the OU-TLS-certificate in the Istio system namespace. That way we'll make sure to get it regenerated properly. Yep. So now if we look at the secrets, we should see a new one gets generated.
Yep.
And yep, we're good. Okay, let's try logging in again. You might want to shut down your incognito and open a new one.
Yeah. Let me do that right now. And I will get in. I think getting Kiali up and running will take like a minute, right? Shouldn't take that long.
Once Kiali's up and running, it's not that hard now. So get rid of the apps. So it's just K8s OU.
Oh, nice.
There we go.
Looking healthier. Okay. Oh, look at that. We're getting there.
Sweet. Okay. Oh, you're running an old version of.
This is probably from
How
2 weeks
are you-
ago because
How is that possible? Because we were running the new version 2 weeks ago. How are you running such an
I
old
hate security.
hey, I will tell you something, Mark. I didn't change anything. This is the same cluster that we're using here.
That is so weird because that's. Oh, I know. Okay, go to your values.yaml.
Okay. Let me stop.
I love these eureka moments.
Hey,
Yeah.
StreamYard, if you're listening, could you find a way to dual screen share so that we don't have to keep flipping back and forth? All right, let's look at our values.
That would be very cool. Yes.
I'll use that. Oh, okay.
All right. Look for the word legacy.
I found it right here. Legacy false.
Yeah. So change that to true, and then we're going to need to update the image. This would have been updated for you, but because we're using the extracted values, it's all preset there. So look for the word HTML.
Well, I'm trying to find that.
It's going to be
legacy
under
value.
OpenUnison.
Yeah. So let's change this to true first, and then
Yeah,
the
change
other
that to
one-
true.
Okay.
And then there's going to be a section called HTML.
Is that top level section or?
No, it'll be under OpenUnison.
Okay, gotcha. Right here.
Yep. So we're going to change that to, let me send it to you in the chat. Got to fix this because for some reason, neither Docker Hub nor GitHub think that people like to copy image tags without Docker pull. Sorry, I get very upset about it.
Oh, so the only thing I'm changing is React, HTML to React.
Yes.
Okay.
So that looks good.
Oh,
That should
hold
be
on.
good.
Prefix
So go ahead.
OU HTML. Do you see that prefix there? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right, that looks good. So go ahead and rerun the OU control command.
What the hell did I do? Okay.
I think technically we only actually had to rerun the last chart, but I like to do it this way with the change of legacy. So we recently moved from that interface to a new React-based, material React-based interface that I at least think is a lot prettier. That interface had not, the old interface had been in existence 2013, 2014. So I could see Kat smiling like, oh my God, that's ancient history. That interface had gone. So OpenUnison's original interface was actually written in Java server faces. And we used to use certificate authentication to get to our APIs. And then we rewrote it into Bootstrap and Angular JS. And used our APIs as a single page application. So that really simplified the implementation and deployment. And then after enough people said, you know, this is an old, tired interface, y'all really need to redo this, I was like, yeah, it's time. We've actually added some nice things to it too. So if you're using our namespace as a service, when we list out groups, we actually break it down into more human readable. So we tell you, you know, cluster, namespace. We do have a plugin that lets you look up by RBAC, so that it'll show you all your RBAC bindings throughout a cluster. I'm going to be updating that probably in the next release to make it work a bit better with groups. Right now, it only works with users. And that'll get integrated. So that'll make it a lot easier for people to see what they have access to. You know, one of the things I've found amazing on OpenUnison's journey is how many people will say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with a web browser. I don't want to deal with the UI," and then they start using it, and they're like, "Wow, I actually get a lot more information a lot more quickly." I'm going to keep using this, and it really does. It really does impact in a positive way people's day-to-day workflow. Like I know me, you know, we don't just write the software for some customers, we manage the implementations as well. And for me, like I don't have kube control configuration files. I keep them around for some dev clusters, but like our production clusters, nope. I'm going to make my kube config a temp file, go ahead and run my OU command. I'm logged in. And that's it. I'm good to go. Oh, I need to switch. Fine. I switch. And our OU control or our OU login kube control plugin also includes functionality similar to the CTX plugin. So if you go to log into another server that already exists in your implementation, it's not going to ask you to log in again. It'll just do a context switch.
I really like this. It feels like it fits really well with what Pulumi's doing with ESC for storing secrets and then loading them from the environment into, you know, chmod 600 in your temp directory. And those are temporary negotiated secrets from OIDC connection between Pulumi ESC and the vendor of choice, right? We don't have OpenUnison, but I'm saying here, like, I need to OpenUnison and Pulumi ESC, and then my secret story gets really, really clean really fast. That's super cool.
Nice. I've not looked into that, but that's definitely something I got to take a look at. I know that some of the things that we're working on that are really fun around secrets management, like we don't do secrets management ourselves. We integrate with secrets managers. So like for the book, we have a little bit of automation inside of OpenUnison, our workflow engine that is not meant to replace a Pulumi or a Terraform. Why is the operator? Let's take a look at what's going on with the operator. We might need to do a little cleanup. OpenUnison operator. Oh, why is the operator crashing? Let's take a look at the log for the operator. Unable.
What happens if I just delete it?
Wait, no, look at our values file. We might have made a mistake somewhere. Where did we? Oh, I know why. Okay, that's why we changed the wrong legacy setting. Change legacy back to false because we changed the legacy on the operator to false. We also recently rewrote our operator. Our original operator tried to install everything, which was a terrible idea in so many different ways. It was before Helm 3 existed. All right, look for the word legacy again. There's going to be another legacy.
Is there a way to do a search in BI?
Yeah, escape out of insert / legacy. Search again, or hit the N button for next.
It would be fun to do that if I had that on my tiny Mac keyboard, which you can see here.
You don't have an N?
Oh,
N.
N.
The N
Oh, I
key.
thought you said
N
oh.
as in Nancy. N as in next. Yeah, it'll go. Okay, I know why. Okay, search for the word HTML. All right, let me look this up real quick. Hold on. Deploy with OU control. And then we need the default values. Legacy. Oh, that's because it's in the default now. I have way too many VS Code windows open.
You should take a look at how many Chrome browsers I have open. So while you
okay, so under HTML, under HTML, add legacy : false there. Lined up with like prefix, and then rerun OU control.
Why won't it?
All right. Nope, that's not how you spell false. There you go. So go ahead and save that, rerun OU control, and then sorry, Kat, I interrupted you.
No, you're fine.
All right, keep going. I'll be right back. Go ahead.
This update on the UI though is totally giving me like JBoss to Keycloak like vibes, where Keycloak is just a JBoss in a trench coat.
Yeah, no, I purposely avoided the pattern fly UI because that's the UI toolkit. Wait, what? Oh, weird. I don't know if you can still hear me, but my my Bluetooth just went out, so my
Got it.
I don't know why.
Yeah, we can hear you, so you're on the record. Whatever you say,
now I can
will
hear
be
you.
used against you.
Yeah, we purposely wanted to avoid pattern fly, which is the UI framework used by all of the Red Hat and OpenShift tools. We ended up using Material GUI to get that material look and feel. Yeah, so we're past the operator. So this is the one that usually takes a while, is because this is the large container.
Okay. That's fine. So while that's going on, there were a couple of questions that did come in, and if I can relocate my window again. Okay. So the question that came in from Krish is, what is the difference between where is and which? Where is, I think, is just locating the binary, and which might output several different options for, let's say I had like 4 different versions of Istio-CTL. Which is the current one that I guess my shell is aligned to, is the best way to put it. Hello, Dikayo, welcome. Chris has another question. Is there an API to resolve DNS? Is there an API to resolve DNS? Interesting. Okay, so it looks like the OUCTL stuff is done. We could probably try to do the auth again, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to open up a new browser. Go. Sent. All right, advanced. Proceed. Oh,
Yay! Okay.
that looks
Now
good.
we've got the React one. So if you look up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that really crazy squirrely name under TremoloSecurity. That's your sub. That's your unique ID from Okta.
Okay.
Now you can change this to be your email address. What I will say is, please don't. Email address is an anti-pattern in the identity and security world. Names change for a bazillion different reasons, right?
Yep.
Basing a unique identifier based on something that might change for any given reason is an anti-pattern, security anti-pattern. So that's why by default we use sub, which whenever you're dealing with any of the enterprise security or identity as a service providers will always be some kind of squirrely looking name like this. You can change it if you want to, but that's the best practice. What you'll notice is that you have the role everyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very helpful for RBAC, because if you were to go over to your dashboard right now, you would find that you would be able to get in, but you wouldn't have access to anything. Now, for anybody who is panicking because they see a Kubernetes dashboard, what you'll notice is that there was no login because you're using your identity, Marino, and you don't have access to anything, right?
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's not true, because I think we created I think last week, Ankansha created a binding to everyone. So you actually do have access to everything.
But why can't I see anything though?
Because there's nothing in the default namespace.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Go to some other namespace.
That's true. Yeah. Let's go to Istio system and then we'll see everything. Actually, OpenUnison.
Exactly. So
there we go. That looks nice.
So you've got secure access to the dashboard. One of the things that's really big about OpenUnison versus other tools is that when you say, okay, we're going to do things via impersonation, as an example, we adjust that for you. So you don't have to now configure a different tool set, whether you're running on-prem or in Sivo, right? It all just works automatically for you.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of dashboards, I know we're running a little behind. Do we want to try to tackle Kiali, or do we want to save that for next episode?
I think this is a good stopping point because we're at the readiness stage where Kiali should be easy, right? Like,
so
technically.
One last thing I would say before we do that, go back to the OpenUnison main screen.
Okay.
Click on Kubernetes tokens. So here's your kube control configuration. The important thing is that OpenUnison server CA certificate, that is your enterprise CA certificate. So you can copy that, download it, trust it on your local system, and that will make the not secure go away. And that'll make your life a bazillion times easier. Oh, did that work? Really? Let's see. Maybe.
Oh, it doesn't
Yay! That's cool.
work? Why doesn't it work from? Oh, there it is. There we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, so that will give you,
Wish
yeah,
it worked.
downloads that.
Another one. Sorry.
That's the other thing is like I discovered this one on
Oh,
Teams the
I
other day. There we go, like that.
Yes.
Go
I was
on.
on a call last week with Teams with a customer. I did that by accident, not realizing it. And like I saw the background, and for the next 15 minutes, me and my customer sitting there saying, "How do we get that to work?" Business, serious business.
Living in the
Productive
future
use
is
of time.
weird, y'all.
I know. All right. So this is good. This is a great stopping point, which means I may even get Peter to come and complete the rest, because at this point, if I create an account for him, you should be able to have access to the same cluster and be able to continue off and deploy Kiali and do all the fun stuff and
Yep.
RBAC.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So this is a great stopping point. Let's recap. What did we do today? We actually removed the default configuration that we had previously with OpenUnison. So we are now using CERT Manager to issue certs for us versus an inbuilt
Mhm.
certificate. And this way we have now guaranteed some more security, right? I mean, the consideration here is that certificates offer up identity management, and we don't generate these by hand, but there's a system that helps us generate this and issues this to intended recipients. The reality, though, is that certificate management is a nightmare, and this is why we use tools like Cert Manager to help with this. We had to go in, create a secret so that I believe this is where Certificate Manager is generating certificates for us, but is using that secret to authorize other services as well. But as an extension of this, we're not having to worry about something we built manually or like a built-in CA or a built-in certificate. We now are trusting something external, so we can tie this to an external CA as well. So we have like external trust, so to speak. Anything that you want to add to this? Oh,
Krish has the
Go.
question, like,
is a CA similar to the one that Cloudflare gives you when you request an SSL?
Not exactly. Cloudflare. So Cloudflare is issuing a certificate for you from a trusted CA. If you look in your browser, you'll see that there's a list of several hundred certificate authorities that are trusted. That's like the master list. And so that's issued from one of those. The CA that we generated here, Krish, is a self-signed CA. So we generated it, and Marino's going to trust it for next time, so that'll make the not secure go away. And if we want other people to be able to access our site without getting that error, we would send it to them. But it's more like the CA that your employer might have for internal websites inside of your enterprise.
Marina, we can hear you.
Oh yeah, well, it helps if I unmute myself. But I just want to say, this brings us right to the end. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We will continue this in 2 weeks, where we will deploy Kiali, explore some RBAC, and I think that might be a great point to even start looking at OPA and how it works with OpenUnison. And then beyond that, I think we're going to dig into some pipeline security as well, because security is outside of Kubernetes as well, and we'll get closer to wrapping up at some point. But thank you all for joining. Thank you, Marc. Thank you, Akansha. Thank you, Kat, for coming along for the ride. We hope to see you in a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Oh,